Okay, um, I want to start off by apologizing for my setup. I've got this weird camera setup, but forgive me. It's all that I can do right now. But I guess it's really not the point. I guess most honest, good people can look past it. But until I get a better setup, this is what I've got. And I'm sorry if it moves around a lot and everything, but I wanted to talk about a couple of things. I guess I wanted to go more into depth about the two primary large cycle calendars that we go through. Specifically, I want to kind of get into the Tzolkin. And I also want to, another primary thing is I want to talk about the resonance of 4, 7, and 13, or the resonance of 13 being the number 7, so we'll get into that in a little while. So the Tzolkin is a 260-day cycle, or night-day cycle, 260 different permutations or combinations of two different qualities. So you have the 20 solar seals, and then you have the 13 lunar tones. And for every solar seal, there's going to be 13 different versions of that. So, for instance, the 13 lunar tones being magnetic, lunar, electric, self-existing, overtone, rhythmic, resonant, galactic, solar, planetary, spectral, crystal, and cosmic. Now, I'll make another video detailing the different aspects of these lunar tones, but that's essentially what they are for right now. And the 20 solar seals, we have red dragon, white wind, blue knight, yellow seed, red serpent, white world bridger, blue hand, yellow star, red moon, white dog, blue monkey, yellow human, red skywalker, white wizard, blue eagle, yellow warrior, red earth, white mirror, blue storm, and yellow sun. And so this creates a matrix where it takes both a lunar tone and a solar seal and combines them into one unity. So naturally we begin at the beginning for both. Yeah, sorry if this is moving around a lot. I apologize. Basically, we begin with the first lunar tone, which is magnetic, and the first solar seal, which is red dragon. Therefore, the first kin, or the first combination of the Tzolkin, is red magnetic dragon. And then what we do, like I've described previously, is we go into the second lunar tone, which is lunar, and the second solar seal, which is white wind. Therefore, the second kin is white lunar wind. And so what we do is we go all the way to the 13th tone, which is cosmic, and the 13th solar seal, which is red skywalker, and we get red cosmic skywalker as kin 13. And then after that, we go back to the first lunar tone, but we continue on to the 14th solar seal. And so this creates white magnetic wizard. And so what you'll see is that you won't have a repeat of any particular kin until you go all the way through the cycle and it begins again. And this repeats every 260 days, which this is the approximate cycle of birth that we all go through. Typically, we relate it as being 270 days or 9 months, but in truth, it's actually 260 days, give or take, depending on the particular individual. And so these first 13 days begins with red magnetic dragon. Now, whenever you have a night day or a kin that begins with, or that has a magnetic kin, for instance, red magnetic dragon, white magnetic wind, blue magnetic hand, etc., that's what you call a wave spell. A wave spell is any fractal of 13, primarily, since we're talking about time, It's a time cycle of 13. So you can think of it as 13 kin, or 13 night days, or 13 weeks, 13 moons, 13 years, etc. They're all various different kinds of wave spells of different fractal size, but they're all essentially the same thing. Cycles that begin and end with the quantity of 13, as well as the quality of 13, which is what these months or these moons are based off of. Now what you'll notice is since there are 20 solar seals in 13 tones, there are 20 wave spells in total. So another thing you'll probably notice is that the color sequences of these 20 solar seals are all the same. It's the same 4 colors: red, white, blue, and yellow. And this repeats 5 times. Therefore, you have 5 different sets of these 4 colors. Now, there's different various mathematics that go into coding, for instance, sequences of 4, which are known as harmonics, and sequences of 5, which are called chromatics. And they have, various different mathematical qualities to them, but by understanding the structure and the sequence of them, you can basically extract more information of what will be manifesting in the present moment. Oh yeah, that was another thing. I wanted to mention, because I didn't preface this before, the law of time is only really secondary compared to the law of no time, which is the present moment. So all of this knowledge, all of this information is essentially useless if we're not applying it to the present moment, because the Tzolkin, which is essentially the present moment, was depicted as a tube by Pakal Votan, one of the ancient Mayan timekeepers, as a tube of consciousness. And that tube is basically what you see in front of you. It's a streamline of what you're currently experiencing. In fact, this is why they call it YouTube, is because when you watch a YouTube video, you're watching a stream of consciousness. So all of these energies, like I mentioned before, are like clockwork that's all aligning to manifest as what we're currently experiencing. And all the different nuances or details that you glean from this science of time is meant to help you to determine all the different factors of what's causing life to be a certain way. So you can think of it simply. You can just, for instance, understand what kin it is, and for instance the oracle reading, which are the powers of both the tone and the seal that is currently manifesting for that night day. Or you can think of it as a wave spell. You can think of it as complex or as simple as you wish. But the important thing to point out is that, one, it's all about the present moment, and two, that this information is all based on sacred mathematics. So therefore, as you begin to study it and as you begin to learn more and more about it, you realize that this information is infinite, and it goes on and on and on forever, and you can always find more interesting details, as well as how it relates to various other things like DNA patterns, various other different mathematical systems. It's all synchronized. All of it is one unified system of knowledge, and it is apparent within nature. Whether you're watching the clocks of the wandering stars, or the clocks of the stars in the firmament, or the sun or moon, or the seasons, or if you're looking at the mathematical structures in plants or animals, etc., it's all right there in front of us to uncover. So going back, I just want to mention real quick, the color sequence, as you'll notice here, red, white, blue, and yellow, this is very important. It is the fractal of 4 or the system of the number 4 manifests itself very prominently in the law of time. For instance, the symbol for Jupiter, you know, the thing that looks like a number 4, or it also looks like a 2 and a 1, that goes back to this information. If you're familiar with the magic square of Jupiter, you know that it's all based on the number 4. So what you'll notice is that the first one is red, the second one is white, the third one is blue, and the fourth one is yellow. Now, just some interesting bits of information regarding this color sequence. In alchemy, there's a 4-step process towards the transmutation of lead into gold. Now, the reason why red is the beginning, which red represents initiating or beginning, it represents the starting point. White refers to the continuation or the extension of that, the refinement. It's red is starting a project, for instance. White is continuing it and refining it and making it better. Blue is the point of where things begin to change and transmute and transform, and yellow is the completion or the ripening of that process. And after it completes, think of it like a seed being planted, then it's growing, and then it starts to fruit, and then when it ripens, the fruit drops a new seed, and then it starts the process over again. And in alchemy, the red is referred to as the rubedo, the white is referred to the albedo, the blue is referred to negredo, or the blackening, which blue and black are oftentimes associated with each other, and the yellow is the centrinitas, which is the ripening or the completion. So, again, sorry for the shaking, but one thing you'll notice is that the order of the first 3, red, white, and blue. Now, I don't know if anybody has ever stopped to notice this, but when they refer to the colors of the American flag, they always say the colors in order of the red, white, and blue. You notice that? They never, when mentioning the colors of the flag, they never say the blue, white, and red, or the white, blue, and red, or the white, red, and blue. No, they always say the red, white, and blue. That is because the people who have sort of set up the symbols of a lot of the government agencies and the government logos of this country were fully aware of this alchemical process. This study or this knowledge of alchemy goes back to time and antiquity. It's this knowledge is, I don't even know how old it is. That's how old it is. And what you'll notice is that sometimes they will depict an American flag with gold trimming around it, right? And that is supposedly a higher, it's sort of a different symbol than your basic red, white, and blue flag. It represents a position of higher order when you see the gold or the yellow present on the flag. So there it is in full completion. So essentially, what they're trying to trap Americans in is just this point of getting to a point where you're starting to change and starting to grow, but then you start back at the beginning and you never make that fully completed cycle. You see what I'm saying? You see how people have done that? Anyways, so to bring up something else, this is the septenary gematria cipher. Thanks to Marty Leeds of the Gnostic Church and Academy of Lord Jesus Christ, he has brought my attention to this cipher of the English alphabet, which, as I've mentioned before, 26 is a fractal of 260. It is a 10th fractal. So if you're familiar with his work, you'll realize just how important this cipher is. Now, it's all based on the vibratory field of 13 and its center resonant field, which is the number 7. Jose Arguelles said that 4 is to 7 as 7 is to 13. And why this is important is because if you have a system of knowledge based upon the number 7, which there are various different systems of knowledge all based on the number of 7. For instance, the musical notes in the major scale, the diatonic scale, or the 7 colors of the rainbow, the 7 chakra systems, etc., etc. 7 is super important for understanding the language of all these various different things. And the key to the number 7 is the number 4, because 4 is the center field where all things are emanating from, right? That is that is where the central processing unit, if you will, the core of the matrix of 7 is contained, is in the number 4. Because you have 3 digits on this side, 1, 2, and 3, and then you have 3 digits on this side, 5, 6, and 7. And 4 rests perfectly in the center. And if you notice this field here, what you'll notice is the menorah of the Jewish Hanukkah tradition. And what you'll notice is that if you complete the image of the circles on this side, what you have are 3 concentric rings. You have a center circle and then these 2 outer rings. And why this is important is because the menorah is a altered version of the words man aura, because I'm not talking about the gender of man, but the human species, right? It's the aura field, right? It is the torus of the human body. That's why it's called a menorah, because it's the man aura, right? The center circle is what is known as the past. That is our inner core. That is like what's inside of us. We contain our past inside of us. This center ring represents the present. It's like the field that connects us to the inside of us to the outside of us. It's sort of like a bridge. You can think of the present as the Tzolkin tube. And then this outer ring is basically the world at large and everything and everybody else beyond us. But at the same time, we have a telepathic resonance with the inside of us and the inside of other people and other life forms. There's like a mirror, a telepathic mirror. It's electrical, it's not, or it's electromagnetic, it's not like a physical thing. So what you'll notice is that 4 is in the center of 7. In fact, this is why the PlayStation controller calls their joysticks the 6-axis, because it represents the 6 directions, right? So if you think of like the word 6-axis, you have SIX, A in the center, and then XIS, which is a palindrome of 6-axis. And the reason being is because encoded within, like, you know, a die or dice that you roll is the mathematical system of the cube, which is also an energy field around of the aura around the human field. And so you have up, down, left and right, and forward and reverse, and these 6 directions, or the XYZ axis, right, with the center, which is the source of where all the externalizing energy is emanating from. So that is going back to the number 4. Now what you'll notice with the number 13, 7 sits perfectly in the center, right? So you have 6 digits on this side and then 6 digits on this side, right? And this also represents the 6-axis, so to speak. And you can attain these 3 various different fields by connecting all the non-primes, right? So you can think of, for instance, on the cipher, you have 4 and 4. Well, this is, yeah, sorry. 4 and 4, 6 and 6, and 1 and 1. And these create the fields again. And just to show how, like, for instance, like a preview as to why this cipher is so important, although I highly suggest you go check out Marty Leeds. For instance, in the book of Genesis, the first name given to God is obviously God, but then later on in the book, they mention his name as the Lord God. And if you look in the cipher for the words Lord and God, both of them equal 13. And the reason being why Lord and God both equal 13, totaling 26, is because in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Literally. This is what is called Logos. And you'll also notice that the word God is 7-4, or 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So, and God created the universe within a week. So this is pointing back to Father Time. It's a reference to the sort of masculine principle of the word, which is why the sword, or the sword and the stone combined, or the sword and the lady in the water, represents both feminine and masculine principles combined, because the word sword is essentially the word word with S in front of it. So sword is an anagram for words. And another key factor about the cipher is that if it's all centered on the number 7, right, with G and T. So if you look at the word 7, and this has been mentioned multiple times, if you're familiar with Marty's work, you'd understand. The word 7, the way we spell it in English, is 65551, which is added sum is 22, and if you divide 22 by 7, you get pi, which is exactly what this 7 is doing with these concentric rings of the menorah, or the man aura, because this cipher is essentially a fractal of all toruses, all energy fields. This is repeating it. It's the same system repeating itself over and over and over again. And what you'll notice is the key numbers of 7 and 13, right? 7 is God's number, 13 is an unlucky number. You can consider 13 being a number of the devil because of how we've come to look at it, how we've been tricked into looking at it. So essentially what these two are going back to is this is not masculine and this is feminine. No. Both of them are masculine and feminine. But you see how they've attached the masculine personality to the center of the matrix, which is the source of all of it, and associated the 13 with the feminine and basically made it corrupted. And they've tried to make us think that 13 is evil, etc. Triskaidekaphobia, the reason why most skyscrapers don't have a 13th floor, why Friday the 13th is such a thing, or why Friday has been associated with Freya, and Freya being the goddess of love and fertility. All this is connected. You see what I'm talking about? You see what they've been doing to us? So that is another interesting thing, is that pi represents this center, or it represents the relationship between the stone, or the lady in the water, which is this field, or at least that's what they've associated it with, right? And the sword, which is embedded in the stone. So you see, it's essentially, the sword represents the fire and the air, which sword goes back to words, and words go back to the communication god Mercury, which is a god of wind, spirit, right? If you could think of this as a target, and what do you do with it? You spear it, right? And that's the target that you spear it with. You see? So it all goes back to the same thing. fire and air have always been labeled as, or fire also goes back to the flaming sword in the Garden of Eden, the flaming sword of Manjushri, who uses a sort of discernment to cut through delusion, or that uses the word to cut through delusion. Or, for instance, in A Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire, Lightbringer, the sword, the flaming sword wielded by Azor Ahai, or the last hero, if you're savvy with, the deeper lore of that. But the fire and the air all go back to this central source of attunement, so to speak, whereas the water and the earth represent the stone and the lady in the water, you see. But as you get more into it, you realize that you'll realize that fire and air aren't necessarily only masculine, and you'll also realize that water and earth aren't exactly only feminine. But I'll get into that later on, and get into the quantum aspect of all of this. So I just wanted to point this stuff out and why this is important. You see, what they've done with, and I mean the Vatican, what they've done with the law of time, essentially the yearly circuit that we pass through, right, the 365 cycle, what they've done is they've taken one of the moons. You can consider it the 13th moon, or you can consider it the 7th. It doesn't matter. They took one of them, right? They took one of the months, the moons, and they broke it apart and then scattered it over the other ones, essentially removing this mathematical understanding from our consciousness and put it all in the auxiliary moons. So you have your central moon, right, which reveals the key of 7 and 13, and now all of our attention is based on just these other 12 as opposed to the total of 13. You see what they've done? So that is why this is important. Now, I guess going back to the Tzolkin, there, as you actually start to research this stuff and compare it to various other things, you realize how prominent this is. Take, for instance, the Wizard of Oz. Or actually, let me explain something real quick, sorry. So, the first wave spell is the Red Dragon wave spell. It begins with Kin 1 and ends on Kin 13, and that is the first 13-day sequence. Now, if you take the total of 260 and divide it by 13, you get 20. 13 times 20 equals 260. Therefore, there are 20 sets of 13-day cycles within this matrix. And so your first wave spell is a red wave spell. Your second wave spell is a white wave spell. Your third, I don't know if you can see it here, but is a blue wave spell. And your fourth wave spell is a yellow wave spell. So you'll see that not only do these four go in the sequence of red, white, blue, and yellow, but also do the 13-day cycles go in red, white, blue, and yellow. You see what I'm saying? And after this yellow wave spell here, the fourth one, it'll begin with another red. And it'll do that red, white, blue, yellow, red, white, blue, yellow 5 times, giving you 20 wave spells in total. Now, if you break up the 5 sets of 13-day sequences, or 4 13-day sequences, so you have 52-day cycles. 52 times 5 is 260. So the first sequence of 4 separate wave spells, for instance, the Red Dragon, the White Wizard, the Blue Hand, and the Yellow Sun wave spells, that totals 52 days because 4 times 13 is 52. That first wave spell is, or that first castle, sorry, which is a 52-day cycle, is known as the Red Castle, the Red Eastern Castle of Turning. So it is the first 52-day sequence. And the corresponding color wave spell within that castle is Red Dragon. Because it is the red castle, its red wave spell is Red Dragon. And the Red Dragon wave spell is known as the Court of Birth because it is the very first wave spell which initiates the entire 260-day sequence. So it is a time of new beginnings, it is a time of starting over, it is a time of starting new things. And then when you get to the second castle, from Kin 53 to Kin 104, that is what is known as the White Castle. And then from Kin 105 to 156, that is what is known as the Blue Castle. And then from 157 to 208, that is the Yellow Castle. And then the very last 52-day sequence is known as the Green Castle, which is the center castle. And that represents the Castle of Enchantment. It is basically the conclusion of the entire 260-day sequence, and it is the most synchronistic because it represents the very center castle. Now, and don't confuse that with these green days here. These are what are known as gap days or galactic activation portal days. This was depicted by the Mayans as the loom of the Maya, which designate very important days of essentially double synchronicity. It's when they're very important days for basically watching the synchronic order sort of make alignments with various different things that may have seemed like they were out of balance or disconnected, and etc. The very last castle is this last portion of the Tzolkin because it goes down like this in these strands, right? And there are 13 different strands. And so what you'll notice is the very 7th strand has no green days. This is what is known as the Mystic Column. We actually just left this column. But, hang on. I'm going to smoke on my pipe a sec. I'll be right back. I'm sorry if I'm not making that much sense, and I'm sorry for the wind. It's been blowing pretty much since last night. But, I guess I've just gotten to a point where I've explained this to so many people so many times that I feel like I may be overlooking certain details, etc. And I'm sure that if I just sort of detach from trying to make, you know, I guess be a perfectionist in my videos and everything like that, that I'll get to all of it at some point. I feel like an old man smoking out of this pipe. Like some old wizard. Anyways. So, within the White Castle, the white wave spell that corresponds in that castle is the White World Bridger wave spell. And the White World Bridger not only represents a bridge between worlds, but it also represents death. Because death is a bridge to another world. And so that is what is known as the Court of Death. It is a time of getting past the fear of death, realizing that death is never the end, and sort of shedding that which is no longer helping us, so to speak. And in the Blue Castle, the blue wave spell is the blue monkey wave spell, which has the Court of Magic. It is a time of reconnecting to our instinctual understanding of magic by essentially tapping into our senses. And the yellow wave spell within the yellow castle is the yellow warrior wave spell, and that is what is known as the court of intelligence. It's a time of ripening knowledge and seeing things come to fruition, etc. And then the entirety of the green castle is the court of enchantment, or the court of the matrix. And so going back, for instance, to like why this is so prominent within various different fiction stories and media is, take for instance the Wizard of Oz. In the Wizard of Oz, the villain is what is known as the Wicked Witch of the West, and each of the 5 different castles represents a cardinal direction. So for instance, the red castle is the east, the white castle is the north, the blue castle is the west, the yellow castle is the south, and the green castle is in the center. So for instance, the Wicked Witch of the West corresponds with the blue castle, which again, like I mentioned before, is the court in that castle is known as the Blue Monkey Court of Magic. And this is where racism comes into it, because the Wicked Witch of the West, her henchmen are flying monkeys. You see what I'm saying? And since the Court of Magic refers, to like wizardry and witchcraft and all that, she is a witch, etc. Right? And she melts down into a pool of water, which the blue represents the water, the red represents the earth, the white represents the air, the blue represents the water, and the yellow represents fire. So Dorothy has to follow the yellow brick road, right, to get past the Wicked Witch of the Blue Castle, right? And then what follows is the yellow castle, which represents the yellow brick road, which is the center, or the central wave spell, or the yellow wave spell within that is the yellow warrior wave spell. And the yellow warrior is also known as the Pathfinder, right? Or the road warrior, so to speak. And so that's why it's a yellow brick road. And you can get into like gold brickers and stuff like that, and Freemasonry and all that, and the secret of the color yellow, and etc., etc., of intelligence. Because all of this, what this is intelligence, this knowledge. It's intel. It's not so much intellect as it is intel. It's just information. So, and that goes back to the solar plexus chakra, which is the frontal lobe, and that has to do with consciousness. It has to do with fragments of information coming from being distorted and broken apart to being in formation, you see. So, and she follows the yellow brick road to Emerald City, which is the green castle in the center, where she finds the wizard and the 14th seal. The wizard has the power of enchantment, which this green castle is the castle of enchantment, and she finds out that pretty much everybody in the land of Oz has been enchanted by this wizard in Emerald City, behind this curtain, and he's tricking everybody, akin to the world we currently live in. And then when all is said and done, she clicks her red shoes, the heels of her red shoes that she took from the other witch, the Wicked Witch of the East, and which East is red, remember? And she took it from the Wicked Witch of the East, who had red shoes, because after the green castle ends, you return to the red castle on the next Tzolkin. So she clicks, after going through the Emerald City of the green castle and meeting the Wizard of Enchantment, it ends, and she clicks her red heels to return to the red castle of the East, which she got from the Witch of the East, the Wicked Witch of the East. So you see how the Wizard of Oz, the story, contains all of this knowledge subtextually, or subliminally. It's not apparent to most people, but it's there, and that's what these people crafted it based off of. Because when the Spaniards came over to the New World, they found the Mayans, not the ancient Mayans, but they found their descendants who still carried this knowledge with them, and essentially began the genocide of the Native Americans and stole this knowledge, this information from them, which was basically discovered and formulated over hundreds, thousands of years. And they took it from them and then kept it and coveted it in secret, and then altered it and gave us a false version, removed the language of the natives, replaced it with their own, and basically indoctrinated them to essentially forget about it. And most of the warriors and the priests of the Mayans and the prominent people they slaughtered, and basically only kept alive the people who would eventually follow orders. Therefore, eventually this would be bred out of them, and eventually they wouldn't have this knowledge, and they wouldn't even have their original language. But my battery is starting to get low. I guess I just kind of wanted to go into more detail about this. I guess this is just kind of a general video, but again, there's still just so much more to get into. So I guess I'll stop it here, and yeah. I mean, I'm not entirely sure what to talk about next, but I guess just reflect on this and also this as well. Check out Marty Leeds. Check out the Law of Time YouTube channel. If you look at the older videos on that channel, you'll find a lot of different interviews with Jose and Lloydine Arguelles. A lot of the newer videos are made by Jacob Rhythmic Dragon. And yeah, if you're interested, if you want to get to the bottom of these truths and change the world, then start following the Tzolkin and the 13 moon synchronometer, which is a meter to measure synchronicity, and you'll find yourself becoming more in synchronization with your path in life. Yeah, I guess take care for now.